And a very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Issues and Attitudes on WEIU. My name is Jeff Owens, my co-host Annalicia Haynes.
Hi, everyone.
And our guest today making a repeat appearance, Dr. Melissa Ames from the EIU English Department. Welcome back, Dr. Ames.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Well, I appreciate it. You got a couple of things that are going on. You've got a high school camp this summer. We'll get to that second. But here in a couple of weeks, you have a big conference on campus.
Yes.
And let's talk about the English Studies Conference and what's going to happen there.
This conference has been going on for quite some time, but for 5 years now, it's been a 2-day event, and it kicks off a week from today, actually.
Okay.
So this upcoming Monday, April 1st, so it's not a Fool's Day issue, it's really happening, we're going to be having a kickoff event at Booth Library at 4 o'clock. We've been talking about things like graphic novels, diversity in literature, diversity in film for years. So we always have great events where we talk about these things in our cultural texts, and we often give giveaways. And then Tuesday is our big event. It goes all day long, third floor of Coleman Hall. We have a bunch of breakout panels. We have alumni panels. We have creative writing readings. We have student research. We have a keynote speaker, so I could tell you about some of those or anything you want to know.
Let's start with the keynote speaker. We always like to talk with who's your big guest?
So this is an alumni. His name is TJ Martinson, and he is a PhD candidate at Indiana University, and he is going to be talking about speculative fiction and kind of what research he's doing, but he is also a debut novelist, so yeah, you should be proud of him. He just wrote a novel called The Reign of the Fisher King, Kingfisher, and it is a cross of superhero mythology and crime thriller. And there's been some really good reviews. It came out with Macmillan.
Now, I'm going to go back to that speculative, what did you say?
Speculative fiction.
Now, what is that?
So, speculative fiction, it's kind of sci-fi-y. So it's fiction who is making social commentary on the world today.
Okay. Let's go to the, let's start with April 1st. No fooling. You got to say that when you say April 1st, right? Is that just the way you have to do? But the 4 o'clock session, where does it start? And we'll just kind of go through the different things.
4 to 5, so it's just a 1-hour event, and it will be in a 4440 Booth Library in the conference room up there, and 2 faculty members will kind of walk us through diversity in literature.
What can people expect when they walk into that little session?
So usually what we do is we kind of do a show and tell of what's happening right now in the cultural landscape of texts that are trying to tackle we need diversity. So tapping into the we need diversity literature movement that's been really big in the last few years, and we've always done a raffle. So a lot of time future teachers go to it because they want to walk away with texts for their classroom. We invite local high school students and local teachers as well. So it's just seeing a great amount of text and hopefully winning a couple.
There you go.
So it sounds like there's a lot of change that's constantly happening in the English world or English teaching world.
Definitely.
So, which is contrary to you go to class, you learn about Shakespeare, and you get it over with, right? So what are some of those changes, some of those different learning experiences that students have?
Well, definitely. I mean, for a long time, we've been talking back at the canon, right? So it's not, you just don't go and read the Dead White Guys, for example, right? So we have a lot more voices, a lot more stories being told in literature today and for many decades. And so you'll just see things explored in different ways, different people getting to tell their stories instead of someone else trying to tell their stories, and just different genres. The genres are always blending and doing a lot of exciting things.
I want to go back to, you said T.J. Masterson? Was it
T.J. Martinson.
Martinson, okay, sorry about that, T.J. Do you remember him as a student here?
Yeah, he actually was my research assistant.
Oh, really?
He did some cool research with me.
So I always wonder about that. And then so when with his book, it just came out. You think it's getting good reviews?
It's getting great reviews.
His first book. Yeah, so he'll be there, I'm sure, to ask a lot. He'll answer a lot of questions about the book, right?
I'm sure he will.
That's what I love when alumni come back.
I'm guessing we can sell them too. I'm hoping.
Okay, so that's really cool. Well, let's go to then on April 2nd. Take us through some of the stuff that you think would attract the interest of not just people in the community, but maybe the Eastern students to get them there. And I really would like to see what would attract students that are not maybe English majors, maybe the comm studies or the journalism or whatever, that would say, I'd like to know more about that type of writing or that type of literature.
So basically, it follows the Tuesday-Thursday schedule from the morning until the afternoon, so from about 9-ish till 5-ish. And anytime that the normal schedule would be, we'll have panels, and they're happening. And they're a bunch of topics. So if you like creative writing and you've always been saying, I've been thinking of taking a class, and you're not an English major, you can come hear people, deliver their poetry, their slam poetry, their creative writing readings, right? We'll have a bunch of poster displays that'll kind of show a multimodal aspect of English. I have students doing 3 different panels. One of our panels are on vampires and zombies, oh my, and it was students who were studying social commentary in all of our texts that have been coming out in the last decade. So things like True Blood or Walking Dead. So if you're a pop culture fan and you just want to see how are people studying this in interesting ways, and how are they maybe writing their own, because some of these people chose to do creative writing pieces to write in the vampire narrative. I have a bunch of freshmen who aren't English majors. They're going to be presenting on screen culture, so about media and screens and what they're doing to us today, some pop culture issues. And there's other panels, obviously, about literature. We have a Jane Eyre in the era of Me Too, so looking at how we might read
cool.
famous literature differently in this particular moment. Panels on multicultural literature's greatest hits and misses, trauma narratives, trauma memoirs are going to be talked about in one panel. So just a bunch of interesting stuff.
Okay.
Well, I just think it's fascinating that there's so many different elements that go or tie into English and the English major that people don't know about.
Yes.
You know, and like with the different genres, especially now. I mean, what's the importance of students being exposed to stuff like this, to different genres, to speculative fiction, to stuff that social commentary and writing? I mean, what's the importance of that?
Right. Well, you nail it. So I'm the director of English Ed, and so when I teach future teachers, I say English is the biggest umbrella, right? So we have reading and writing and speaking and listening and media analysis, right? It's really huge. I think that what students get from taking a class just for fun, they don't have to do majors or minors, is they're thinking critically about the text they're consuming, because we are in a text-saturated world. We are exposed to things more than we ever have before, and we're reading all different types of text. So I think it's really important to see how texts are selling us messages, how they're commenting on our world, how we can critically break them down. And I think just learning to do that in different genres, in different media formats is really important.
Do you ever study like the oversaturation, when something there's too much of one thing in there? You know, I don't know if it's the whatever subject you want to talk about, but have you seen that recently? Is it the Me Too? Is there too much or not enough, or is it just getting there?
I don't know if I've studied that particular, but I definitely do look at trends and try to
and maybe
figure
the
out.
trend would be a better way to look at it, just because it seems like we hear so much about something and we just get tired of it after a while.
Right, yeah, and I think there is a numbing effect. So I've always, as a pop culture scholar, been interested in trends and what we see and what that means. And so I was a post 9/11 scholar, and so forever I was seeing, still today, a lot of things that were commentating on us as a nation needing to be saved, right? Or us versus the other, or the fear of invasion, fear of enemies lurking within. And so I think you can definitely see through cultural texts what we're worried about, our cultural anxieties.
Yeah.
And I don't know at what point they start to numb us, right? Or breed more anxiety.
And it seems like in 9/11 for a while there, that encapsulated the country for that 3 or 4 year period. And then people just said they don't want to talk about it anymore. It went. I won't say it went away, but a lot of the talk about it went away. And then now it seems like as you get to the 10 year and the 15 year, people bring it up more and more. But I think, is that what you kind of see as that trend? Popular, go away, then come back.
I think it just morphs. So for 9/11, I think you saw a steady increase of rescue narratives. So if you were to look at what was out in 2000 versus today, we have so many White House series, so many FBI, Navy SEALs, police officer and fire were always pretty big, but they kept going. So a lot of those salvation shows, we think of things like Homeland, things like 24.
The new FBI is out, and it's not too bad. Yeah.
So I think it was there, and we've seen shows, actually show, terrorist attacks in cities again. So I still think we're working through it.
Okay. Any more on the conference, or do you want to switch to the summer camp?
So just about the conference, there's free lunch involved. So if you want to come around with Coleman Hall and check it out, you also get a free lunch on us. And there's also alumni networking. So we bring back some EIU alums to talk about what they've been doing in their various fields, which can be really great. And we have a teacher educator panel. So even if you're not going to be an English teacher, but you're interested in education, you might come on out. We have people talking about their jobs in high schools, but their jobs in regional offices and other ways that they've kind of taken their education in different ways.
I was going to ask you about the education different ways. Do most of your students or the current grads, or however you want to look at it, do they want to teach write, or they want a little bit of both? How do you see it?
A little both. Usually, as an English major, about 60% come in thinking they want to be teachers because that seems like the easiest trajectory, right? People have a hard time saying English degree equals this. But as they get here, and like you're saying, they figure out how many things fall within the English studies umbrella, they actually do branch off in different ways. Creative writing continues to be huge. Students love to write. I think the 21st century is breeding writers.
What do you think that is? Just because of this, so many different ways to write, different avenues, different subjects, and you can get your word out immediately now?
Yeah, I think it's the platforms. I think that we are writing all the time on Tumblrs and blogs and whatnot, social media. I think that people like that. They like that, like having their voice heard. I also think that we're trying to breed a new generation of YouTube video stars. Right, that's what my children want to do.
I understand.
Yeah.
I do. I think Eastern should start a course in
Probably.
YouTube. I've actually brought that up, but
Well, that goes along with branding, branding yourself or
Yes.
giving yourself a brand or however you want to say that. But
And we can come back a little bit on the conference. Let's talk about the summer camp for the students. And this is for high school students. You've been doing this a few years now.
Yes.
You've gotten great response. Seems like every year it grows bigger. So just talk about it, and we'll kind of go into some details.
Yeah, thanks. So this is our year 5. Last year we had our first graduating class. There were some students who came all 4 years, and that was really touching. But we have grown. We usually have about 60-some students from across the state of Illinois, and sometimes out-of-staters, which is really exciting. This year we have students coming from out of country. We have some Vietnamese students coming, so we're really excited about that. And what we do is students come and they spend 7 days on campus, 6 nights. It's from Sunday afternoon until Saturday morning. And Monday through Friday, they take 2 classes, a morning class and an afternoon class. So they choose from the variety of offerings we have. All of the meals are included, all of the activities. We swim and we go bowling and we do poetry slams and barbecues and yard games. And so they have a nice little cohort. And then on Saturday, when their families come to pick them up, we have a showcase celebration in Doudna where students are performing, if they were in a performance class, doing creative writing readings, showcasing poster art, other electronic projects. It's really exciting.
We got to go back to the Vietnamese. How did you get the kids did they hear about it, or did somebody recruit them? How'd that work?
So this came through the graduate school. So we have a lot of partnerships now. EIU is partnering globally with other universities and just making kind of outreaches. And they came to us, said we have some students at our English-speaking high school over here that are interested in a kind of study abroad opportunity, and they reached out to us.
Well, I think that'll be real enriching for the other students coming because they're going to get that whole different, atmosphere by learning from people from another country while they're on campus. So.
Well, and even without the global aspect, I've always found that to be the case because our students come from such different areas of Illinois. I mean, so we have students who come from, really, really small towns and who are coming, from the heart of Chicago. And I feel like even that gives them such a great experience before they get to college of how bigger the world is.
And it's such a great way for these students high school students to network. I mean, they probably don't even know what networking is, but when you come to these camps and when you meet different people and you exchange numbers and we're going to meet up at so and so, that's networking.
Yes.
Well, and the world's so much smaller now, so they can become friends for life via social media and via the different ways that we communicate. Where old guys like me went to school, if you didn't write the phone number down and keep it, where'd my buddy go?
Well, and it's happened. I was going on Monticello's Polar Express a few years ago, and some girl came up to me and said, "Hey, do you remember me? I was in your camp." We still all talk to each other, and so it's really heartwarming. That's good.
You said they get to choose from 2 different courses to study that week. I know you always have some unique.
Yes.
So talk about some of those courses and the uniqueness of some of them.
So about a good chunk of our classes are creative writing because, again, the interest is so high. So this year we actually have a songwriting class. So they'll be analyzing songs and writing songs if they're interested in that. We have a class on writing young adult fiction because a lot of students are interested in that genre. We have a class that is on tragedy and the memoir, so trauma narratives. So they'll be studying memoirs of people who have written about hard things in their life, and then students have an opportunity to write about their own kind of difficulties. And we have, back for the 5th time in a row, a novel idea, which is written by a local novelist, and she talks about the book biz, basically, how to get published and out there. And so on the other side, we have a variety of kind of more traditional literary studies courses. We have a course on adaptation, so looking at USA to global adaptations, so from print to graphic novel or print to film, so that should be really fun. We have Before CSI, which is about the Victorian detective novels and detective stories. We have a class on LGBTQ fiction, so looking at gender and sexuality in literature. And we have a course on social protests in literature, so looking at how civil rights issues have been explored.
Okay. Wow. Pretty diverse.
See, but these high schoolers are so much different compared to even when I was in high school. I just feel like they're so willing to learn more and take more in and go beyond traditional, teaching methods and stuff that they're traditionally taught or used to be taught in classrooms. I think that's fascinating.
So if someone's out there listening to this and they know they have a high school student, they might want to be interested. The easiest way to apply, get the information is?
Yeah, so go to EIU, and on our search bar, if you just typed in English Studies Summer Camp, you probably could Google it and find it too. You'll find all of our information, and we're really proud. We are the cheapest academic camp in Illinois and in the whole country. So for $295, they get all of their courses, all of their food, all of their entertainment, and I stand by it. That is cheaper than you can feed a teenager, I think, at home. So there's that, and we have a commuter rate too. So if there's someone locally who wants to drive to and from campus, or they have to have evening jobs throughout the summer, they can still come for the classes during the day.
It's late July, right?
It is July 20th to 27th this year, or 21st to 27th. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did you set goals like if you had 60 last year, do you want 65 this year? Or I know people don't like to talk about that, but I always think it's better when you have, when you kind of do that.
In the beginning, I think I did. I think I had this dream, we'll get to be so huge. But what has been nice is the intimacy of it, of having a cohort where they get to know each other. And so in some ways, I don't want to grow too big because I like the fact that they feel like they know everyone that attended the camp. And if we get into the hundreds, I feel like then they might just, click off.
When you talk to your former students, like you said, the one in Monticello, or students who just finished the project last year or the year before, what do they say about the experience? What did they tell you?
Well, often they'll say things like they just never knew that this is what English could be, right? So it's not like we're trying to change their mind and say, you should all be an English major, but just to expand their mind about what you can do under that umbrella. But often they'll just talk about the experience of having a taste of college. Most of them have never, been on a college campus, especially if they're the ninth graders. They haven't, again, mingled with people from different school districts and areas around the state. So they like that kind of taste of freedom, just the idea to interact with professors, to kind of feel like what college study would be like. So yeah.
I want to switch over to the current EIU students. What do they ask you the most about right now? And when talking about, it doesn't even have to be about literature, just when you're in before class, after class, what are they asking you?
Oh, well, I teach a lot of college freshman class, and in that freshman composition class, we are doing a lot of argument and research. So we talk a lot about the post-truth era. So, how do you make an argument and use facts and draw on sources in an era where all of that seems a lot grayer than it used to be? So we have a lot grayer. So we talk a lot about that.
That's interesting. I didn't know. You always wonder what the students ask, and they when they talk about that. If you have a favorite course that you've taught here at Eastern, is there that one that you just love to teach when it's your turn to teach it?
Oh, well, I'm teaching actually one of my favorite courses in the fall. It's a multimodal composition, and so it's a class that studies writing in online spaces. So they will study the way, for example, a social media movement has happened on Twitter, and then they will do things with themselves on Twitter. So one is like an applied business project where they have to pretend that they're, launching a marketing campaign for a business. They have to figure out, would Instagram work best for that business, or would Twitter or would Facebook, and they have to kind of pitch it like they're actually a company. And then they study for a final project an online writing space. So last time I taught this class, students were analyzing Goodreads comments to see how that works. They were studying the NFL protest that was happening and the ways in which different news organizations had different types of comments on their feeds. So looking at internet studies comments. Just exciting stuff like that. I think that's a lot of fun.
How do you know when you think one of your students just has it or gets it, or you just have a feeling they're going to be a star, or going to be just the one you don't have to worry about anymore?
Oh, well, sometimes students could teach themselves, man. You are just there to give them the tools, and you can see that student right away. I think what's even more exciting is that aha moment that happens kind of halfway through a class where they found the project they love, or they finally something clicks, and that's just really exciting when you can see that growth, and they walk away and they're really proud of something. And some students, it's the first time that they've done something that they loved or they had a lot of choice in.
On the creative writing, is there any limits on subject matter? I know this is becoming big nationally right now. With the president saying that if universities want to continue to get money, they have to allow people to have the free speech and the free. Is there any rules like that? Do you?
Well, Well, I think every creative writing teacher who runs their workshops will talk about it being a safe space, correct? But usually there isn't a lot of censorship. They talk a lot and debate a lot about trigger warnings and whatnot, but they also talk about, when are you doing something to be gratuitous and for shock effect versus when are you doing something because it matters to the work. So I think they have those levels of debates. When I've had students do creative writing application projects, I've never had to limit what they could do. I feel like our students make really smart choices, maybe because they're still in an academic setting where they might be,
less cringeworthy
yes,
comment. That's good. I mean, I think that sets well for what Eastern Illinois University is about. When you think about the courses you've taught, is there any course that you would like to create to teach in the future as you get more experience and continue your kind of process or progress as a professor?
I really loved the class I taught this past fall on vampires and zombie narratives. That was
We're going to talk
really
about The Walking Dead before this
yes.
is over.
That was really fun. I'm a TV scholar, and so I've still yet to teach a class all on television, and I think that would be really fun for me, but that might not be my turf in the English department, but I think I want to continue to bring pop culture into my classes. Okay.
Our doors are open at WEIU. There you go. Alicia, stuff on your mind still over there or not?
Well, I just think it's great that the students have this type of outlet, especially with creative, because I had a creative writing course a couple semesters ago, and I loved it. I thought it was the greatest thing ever. So, and then you do have the freedom to especially with poetry, certain types of writing, you kind of have to limit yourself just because of the style, but with poetry you can do just about anything. So
for next week's English Studies Conference, do other English departments on other campuses do like the conference, the mini 2-day thing so people can find out a little bit what's going on? Some
of them do, not always. I think it's really great that EIU has this professionalization opportunity, and English isn't the only one that does it. Comm Studies has a day event. I know history does as well. So I think it's really great that we're giving students an extra thing to put on their resume that other kids don't. You're on the job market and someone says, wow, again, if they're interested in Walking Dead, you did something on Walking Dead, did you? And it strikes a whole conversation. It's something unique for them, and it gets them over their fears of public speaking, and they realize, it's actually exciting to talk to a new group that I don't know and share what my knowledge is and my passion is.
When you are working on your course for this fall semester, and you've already taught that course 3, 4, 5 times, do you change it up? Do you try to throw things in there that are different, that are maybe more topical or top of mind? Or how
Yeah, so I love working with a base that I've had, but what I do every semester is, besides for required course evaluations that EIU would have you do, is I ask a really specific one about my courses, my texts, my assignments, me, and I pull those out when it's time to redesign the course, and I try to use the feedback that students give us. And I like to switch out readings and make them align with what's happening in the cultural moment, so that really works well.
Okay. Let's talk about, we're going to talk, you're not a Walking Dead fan, I know, right? Unless you're not.
I used to be. I stopped watching after everything just got really complicated.
We won't get too far into the mud, but did you watch last night's episode or not?
I did not. I am up to date till last year, so I have not watched this year, unfortunately.
So last year's, the only thing I can tell you about, so not to give anything up, last night's episode was clearly the best episode of this spring semester. But that's not saying a lot because it's really been a bad 8 or 9 episodes. But last night's was really good, the best one. So I will just say that. But when you think about The Walking Dead and what it was at the highlight, which is probably 2 or 3 years ago when it really hit that crescendo in ratings, and everybody was talking about it, and everybody who wasn't talking about it says, "Oh, it's just a stupid zombie show." Talk about what it did to pop culture when it was at its peak.
Well, I think I love watching its trajectory. So it really did have a lot of social commentary. I think it really went away from us versus the zombies into really critiquing humankind, right? What the darkness is with humans, and in the later it gets darker and darker and darker, and I think that it was really hard to watch, but also really important for us to think about. I think it did great things about gender and social commentary. My favorite character had always been Carol, and so I really enjoyed watching fans react to her characterization and the way in which she broke gender norms and wasn't punished for it. She wasn't punished by the fans not liking her when she didn't act like a traditional female character and whatnot.
There you go. That's a good answer. Yeah. Really good answer. I wish we could talk about last night's episode. I'm dying.
Sorry.
I know. It's funny is 2 or 3 years ago, all the students on campus would talk about it. Now that it's become less popular, not as many students here, at least WEIU, talk about it on a weekly basis like we used to. It's just funny how I've seen that trajectory here.
Well, and I don't think it's just Walking Dead. I think it used to be, we would remember the water cooler, right?
Yeah.
Like, everyone talked about, let's say, Friends or whatever in the 90s. Everyone watched the same thing. It is getting more and more diversified. We have a media curation happening happening because we can binge on Netflix and Hulu and whatnot. People aren't watching on the same timeline. So it's just hard to have those shared cultural capstone texts.
There you go. Social media that you use the most?
I like Facebook to post beautiful pictures of my kids, and I'm from all my family's out of state. Twitter's where I do my kind of more academic or political stuff.
Okay. And unless you want to answer, I mean, you're a EIU student. Which one do you use the most?
Social media platform? I don't know. I try to avoid it just because I don't want to be consumed. But I mean, I go on Facebook for, posting den stuff, and so I would say that that's the one that I use the most.
Current book, since we're talking to an English study, is there a current book that you're reading right now, and would you suggest?
I just read Educated, which is a memoir about extreme poverty. A girl who, goes really far in life, gets a PhD, but she's totally self-educated. And it's a really difficult book about growing up not only in poverty, but growing up with parents who have mental illnesses, growing up in kind of a cult religion. So, yeah, if you like memoir and really want to have an experience unlike your own, probably, that's a book I would recommend.
You're reading a current book right now?
Well, so I have a textbook that I've been actually reading. I've been reading this one, yes.
You're the one.
So there's different excerpts in there from, it's political philosophers, so that's what I've been reading.
Is there any new authors out there that you suggest that you think, this one is just, I've fell in love with him or her over the past, maybe since we spoke last or in the last couple of years?
Gosh, I'm just not, I don't know if I can think of one off the top of my head.
That's all right.
It's just they're exploding everywhere.
This is a question I thought of this morning. Maybe you think it's a dumb question, but things go crazy in my mind sometimes. Is there something about the English language that just bothers you the most? I mean, I know there's a lot of idiosyncrasies in it, but there's that one thing that just stands out, like, who thought of this kind of moment, or why did they do this kind of moment?
Well, I mean, I guess I understand why it's so ridiculous, right? It's a hodgepodge of different points of conquering, right? I do think that it doesn't parallel other languages. I just went to Mexico, and it is lovely to see how Spanish and French and Italian all look alike because they're Latin based, and so it is a lot more difficult that we don't have that easy mirroring to any other language.
Right. Now, you answered one of my questions I already asked. I said a class you'd like to teach would be a TV class, so you answered that one. What about a TV show that you have to watch, that you don't wait a year on or wait a season on? Is there one every week that you'd have to watch?
Yeah, I must be going through a sappy stage in life right now. So I just love This Is Us, and then this year a million little things. Those are my two kind of pull at the heartstrings shows I've been enjoying. And then Madam Secretary does really great social commentary. I've just loved how up to date it is, and it's really just touching on things that are happening in our world.
Did you see that one last night?
I am one episode behind, so
can't talk about that one.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm so busy.
And I love that show. And last night was social commentary, maybe at one of its peaks, actually. So, is there an Eastern student? Is there a TV show that you have to watch each week?
The Orville.
The Orville.
Yeah. So it's Seth MacFarlane. That's his show. And speaking of social commentary, they do a lot of that in that show. So it's very Star Trek meets. Barely meets Family Guy commentary. So it's funny. It's a good show.
We're about out of time. We're talking to Dr. Melissa Ames. I'll let you have the last few seconds. If anybody wants to contact you or more information available, how's the best way to talk about the EIU, the English department, the two conferences you're going to have, the one in the summer and then one next week here on campus?
Just go to EIU, type anything in the search bar about the camp or the conference, or email me at mames@eiu.edu, and I'd be happy to point you in the right direction.
English Studies Conference is next week, April 1st and 2nd, and then the camp for the high school students is this summer, late July, and of course, we'd love to have you here. This is HitMix 88.9 WEIU and WEIU. Thank you, Dr. Ames.
Thank you.